What's going on, guys? My name is Ian Moore. I'm the host of the YouTube C.R.E.W channel, and today I am here with Weston and Grace, and these are two beautiful, amazing people right here. And we are going to be talking about relationships. I'm going to be asking them some relationship questions I had in the past, and also maybe some questions you had. So, let's start it simple. How long have y'all been dating? Where and how did y'all meet?
We've been dating just over 9 months.
Yep.
Yeah,
10 months.
16.
10 months on the 16th.
16 will be 10 months. Yep.
Which is like 11 days away.
Mm-hmm.
That's insane.
Quick minutes.
Yeah.
I didn't think y'all actually were dating that long.
Yeah.
It's
Because
not
Nathan
like
told me it was
that.
like 6 months. I was like, I
How
remember
do
when
you
y'all.
know?
You started
I don't
dating-
know.
You started dating,
I was like, I thought I knew. It's whatever.
you started dating in July.
July. Yep. Technically, we met when I was like 15, and you were he's only 8 months older than me, so I guess you were like 16, maybe.
16 or 17.
Probably 16, but
Yeah.
I worked at Chick-fil-A. I started when I was 15.
I like to
and
eat
he was
Chick-fil-A.
I was in high school too, but I was homeschooled, so I could work in the day. And he was at TLC, and they came for lunch like.
Right.
every-
So we get to the counter, and I order, right? And I get my usual, number one, no pickle, large fries, probably a large water around there,
Yeah.
because I was balling on a budget. Probably did one of those cool receipt things.
He did.
And
He
only
did
spent like
receive
$2 on my meal. It was awesome. Cheat codes. Anyway, and my buddy goes up and orders his food and comes back to the table, and he is like red, like I'm sunburnt, and he would make me look pale right now. Like my boy was red. And so he sits down. He's like, dude, that girl is cute. And I'm like, bro, give her your number. Pumping him up. There's no way she'll say no. There's no way. Chick-fil-A people are way too kind. You
Oh
know what I
my
mean?
gosh.
I was wrong. Anyway, so he eats his food. He's like trying to like build up the courage and everything. And so he gets up.
That's a terrible
He
idea.
told me I was pretty. The first time he came by, he said it's so bad. Like,
This is
word-
whenever he did it. This is the.
No, he came back again. The second time was when he gave me his number. First time was when he said the thing about.
Oh, so he goes.
That's a terrible idea,
Okay,
though,
so-
to eat first. Like, what if you throw up in the process? If you're being so nervous.
He's giving me.
Yeah, terrible idea.
Anyway, so the first time he goes up, he goes, and this is kind of like, guys
Word
don't
advice
do
to
this,
any guy ever.
because this is kind of a backhanded
Think about how you
compliment.
say things if you're
Yes.
trying to get something.
So this is kind of a backhanded compliment. He meant well, but don't word it like this. Learn from this dude's mistakes. He goes up, he's ordering his meal, and he goes, look, I don't know if anyone's ever told you this,
Oh my.
But you're really beautiful.
but you're really beautiful.
Thank
Which
you. I'm
is
so
like,
glad that until this moment, no one's ever told me that before. Thank
Yeah.
you for being the one.
it's like,
Rude.
listen, I can understand how some people wouldn't say it. You know what I mean? That's almost what it sounds like. It's almost like, hey, I know some people wouldn't think so. I don't know if anyone's ever told you this. But I personally find you pretty attractive. You know what I mean? Don't word it like that.
Anyway, just
So
be,
he does
just be
this.
more chill.
Yeah, just
So
tell her she's pretty and move on.
anyway, he
Or
comes
just keep
back
your
up
mouth
again
shut.
to
So he
get
goes up.
dessert,
He goes up to
He
order a
push-
shake.
yeah.
And
pushes a receipt across the counter across the table, and he's like, I would really just like to get to know you better, so here's my phone number. And I just slid it back. I was like, no, thank you, and that was it.
No, I wasn't expecting that.
she said, it's not my pleasure.
That's something straight out of the psych, dude.
And she rejected him. And I was like, half like, bro, what? There's no way.
Bro, it's my
But
turn.
like,
Well, we officially, like, hello, my name is Grace, my name is Weston, was at Young Adults we don't really remember the month.
Last
January-ish. January?
last year.
Last
When
year.
times were good.
December,
Last
last
year.
December,
Yeah.
like December
Either way.
2018
Yeah. So we've
to
known each other
around
a little
January
over a year
2019.
now.
Because whenever I
But
came home for Christmas break and
Yeah.
then just
Decided to drop out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've known each other over a year now.
Yeah. And then we got to know each other
Well,
for
kind of.
6 or 7 months around there. And then honestly, we started becoming best friends.
6-7 months to get to know each other.
Yeah.
Before.
Like we were just
Before,
friends.
when we
Yeah.
were just friends.
I-
There's a lot of other stuff behind it that we're not gonna get into,
Okay.
but that's about how long it took. You know, we started like this friend group. It was me, my best friend, her and her sister. We would all hang out, the four of us, you know, go on like drives till like midnight, just like driving around listening to.
Drove to Great Creek and back so many times.
Road trips.
We would go where the loop started till the other end.
Because there's not much
What did we do
for
here?
Christian kids to do
Yeah.
at 11 o'clock to midnight.
If we're not
Go to Canes.
But like,
Besides eat.
we did do that though.
We camped out
We
at
did go to
fast food
Canes.
places a lot too.
Until we had
Chicken
to leave.
Express.
Yeah, we did that too. And then we would just go drive because I mean honestly driving is fun.
We're
And
very
then
chill
you
people.
just get to hang out. Everyone gets to be on their phone if they want to be, and then you're just talking in the car.
Listen to music.
Exactly. But I can actually tell you the moment that I fell for her.
Oh, are you
Like
joking?
I can tell you literally the moment. It was April of 2019.
April's a great month.
April is a great month. April
It's a
13th.
perfect month. 17th as well is a great
April
month.
17th.
Is that your birthday?
Yes, it is.
Aww,
Yeah.
I didn't
My
know
boy's
that.
17.
I am 17.
Oh, so you had your golden year
You did.
this year.
In quarantine, yeah.
Yes, hey, me too. 21 in quarantine.
21, yeah.
It's not like I was
You can
gonna
do a lot more than I can.
It's not like I was gonna do anything anyway. Anyway, so it was like the first moment that us four were gonna go hang out, but we had to have some ladies. If your parents won't let you go hang out with a guy, or if you and your friend their parents don't let you go hang out with two other guys, it's because they're protecting you. They're not trying to keep you from anything. They're just making sure you're safe, okay? Because you don't know what crazy lunatics live in this world. Moving different. Anyway, so, we met at the church at Celebration, and I was going inside. I think it was just after my birthday, or it was my birthday. I think it was just after. I think it was just after.
We were technically celebrating your birthday, but it wasn't your birthday.
Right. So I was just turned 20, and I went inside the church.
We had just started being friends. It was
Yeah.
like the second time we hung out.
Yeah, like for real hung out outside of a young.
Yeah.
And so I go inside to the church.
So
I'm
he fell
talking
in
to my
love with me
parents.
early, if you can't tell. Sorry, go ahead.
Of course I did. Wouldn't have it any other way.
I know, you tell me.
Anyway, so I'm walking out to my car, right? Because we're all gonna take my car, and she's just standing there. I mean, she literally was in like almost like pajama clothes.
I
It was
looked
like
so
leggings
bad.
and
I
like a
looked
big
really-
t-shirt.
I had
She had
just
no
showered.
makeup on.
I had just taken a shower.
Yeah.
My hair was wet. No makeup
And
on.
I'm not even kidding. I'm walking out to my
That
car. We're
t-shirt
about to
and
get in.
leggings.
Yeah. And I almost stopped in my tracks and was like, "What?"
And he didn't talk to me very much that night.
No, I didn't. Because I was
If
like,
you're that
He
nervous,
was nervous, yeah.
"Yeah,
I
exactly."
noticed
And she
problem
rode
was-
she
I
rode in the
was
back
the
seat,
back, yeah.
and so
And
I mean I didn't talk to her.
He was
Right?
quiet.
She was
he
in
was
the back
quiet
walking
the
because I
whole
drove.
night. You were very quiet that night.
I was. Well, because
I did not know
I was kind of
why.
tongue tied. Anyway, so I'm walking out to my car, and like she's just standing there. She's not doing anything like special. She's not like leaning up against the car and like look at me. She's just standing there, no makeup on, but like was easily the most beautiful girl I've ever seen without makeup on. That's huge. Just saying. That's big. And so that was kind of the moment where I was like, okay, this girl's rocks. Like I can dig it. You know what I mean too. Anyway, and so that's like literally like the moment. Like I was walking out to my car and I was just like,
He's pretty cute without makeup on too.
which is all the time. Which is all the time. I don't ever wear makeup.
there was always that one time.
Okay, I let my little sister do my makeup one time.
Exactly.
But
There's
Except
always
for
that one
lipstick,
time.
Except for lipstick,
except for
that was
lipstick,
just too far.
He said.
See, that's why you get the check.
no, moving. That was extra. That wasn't. You don't have to pay for that. That was extra.
Well, now we're gonna get into the godly questions. By your definition, what is a godly relationship? Both of you,
That's tough.
each.
I'm not gonna lie because honestly, the definition varies for each person.
That's why I want,
To
like-
me,
Right.
I think a godly relationship kind of starts before you're in the relationship. It's like you kind of have to, like your relationship with God has to be very solidified, and you have to be very grounded in who you are
Absolutely.
with God to be ready, to be like sure that you're ready for the person that He's meant for you. Because obviously,
Yeah.
you know, if you're, you know, dating with intentionality or whatever, like you're dating to be married, not just dating to date. You know,
Mhm.
you want to be
Which is a waste
who
of time.
God wants you to be prepared for that, because that person's going to be a big deal. It's not going to be a waste of time at all, you know.
Yeah.
And so, I think first of all you have to make sure that you and God are where you're supposed to be at the time that, I mean, you're not going to be perfect. You're not ever going to be like, okay, as soon as I'm ready, then I'm going to, you know, go out with this person or whatever. You know, eventually you just go for it when God tells you the time is right. You know,
It honestly happens like when you don't expect it.
Yeah, it happens organically. So to me, I mean, I think they're relationships you don't have to force. You know, I think that to me was one of the biggest tellings with he and I when we got together was like I kept thinking this is just too easy. Because I mean, I don't have like a whole lot of other relationships in my past, but the ones I had were complicated and unnecessarily so. But I just wasn't mature enough to know that because I wasn't ready. And so with him, basing it off of what I like had experienced in the past, I kept thinking this is just too easy. Like something's gonna go wrong because it's just like it shouldn't just be working out this well.
Mm-hmm.
But it was because it was meant to happen, you know. And so
Absolutely.
so I was, you know, who I was at that time was ready for him to be in my life. He'd been in my life at any other point in time, probably wouldn't have worked out because I wasn't who I needed to be in order to be ready for him, you know. And so I
I'm
think
just saying it just happened.
It
was
was
in
a
a
lot
way,
of work.
it
It
was
was
like-
very intentional.
I mean, you have to put in effort.
Yes, we spent a lot of time talking. We would talk for hours, texting, like on the phone sometimes, because like right after we started dating was like he went to camps and like all these things, and so well we just talked so much, and we've always tried to make communication be like really, really important in our relationship. We like almost to the point we overly communicate sometimes, just because it's just really important, you know, for there to make sure that you're on the same page and you're. Well, you know, just sometimes when I, like, one time, like, I thought he was mad at me, and it was, like, all made up in my head.
Yes.
But even though I knew it was in my head, I still, like, this is how I feel, I just need you to hear this so you can tell me with your ear, so I can hear it for myself, that you're not mad at me, because, you know, so even though that seems unnecessary, it just brings me peace in the moment, and so,
For
does that answer the question? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Honestly, I was piggybacking off of something she said earlier, was just like, you know, your relationship with your spouse starts with your relationship with God.
Mm-hmm.
If your relationship with God isn't very strong, it isn't very sturdy, then, I mean, God is love.
Yeah.
And so if you can't understand or like fully grasp the fact that someone you can't see loves you unconditionally, then you won't be able to grasp somebody you can see loving you unconditionally.
Yeah.
And until you grasp that concept, and until you can almost reciprocate it back to God, that no matter what circumstance you're in, whether times are great or whether times are hard, that you're like, you know, God loves me and I love him no matter what. I mean, if you don't understand that, there's no way you're going to be able to with another human being.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because human beings, I mean, let's be real. Like, honestly, she's the perfect person for me, hands down. But, like, there are times I'm like, can you just, like, not right now? Very lovingly. It's
And
not
vice
that
versa.
and vice versa. She does it right back. And it's not because I'm mad at her or, like, annoyed at her or anything. It's just, like, in that moment, I just, you know, I want her to be there, but I just don't want her to, like, talk or anything like that. You know what I mean? And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean,
It's the same way, yeah.
Yeah,
And
no,
that
for
also-
sure.
and
It's
and also,
reciprocated.
this is the language
I've
of
never-
people who've been
wow.
dating for a while. Also,
it's
Like,
reciprocated.
You're
I mean,
not like
it's not
your
just
first meeting,
lovey-dovey
you're
all
like
the time.
everything he does is perfect, and he's just nothing. He can't do anything
See, that's
wrong
called
ever.
honeymoon
and-
phase. And that's the first month, and then after that, it's like
I mean, because honestly, let's be real. The honeymoon phase is a real thing.
it is.
It really is. I mean, you're just
That's how we were in the beginning.
overly infatuated with this person. You're like, there's nothing they can do wrong. I'm gonna be with this person forever, and that's when people start to like, you know, almost make this
When you
person
choose-
they're with
yeah.
seem like a god.
Well,
You know
if
what I
you
mean?
choose not to see them for what they really are, and then it
Yeah.
crumbles because then you get disappointed, and so
Yeah.
you don't set those expectations, and
Absolutely.
you don't get disappointed.
And so I would say what makes a godly relationship is whenever you both have your own separate relationships with God, and then can continue as a couple to have the couple relationship and also your own separate relationships with God.
Yeah.
So like you're together and you're growing together in your relationships with God, and you're pushing each other, and like, you know, like she's there for me in my moments of just like weakness is what I would say. Not doubts in each other, and not doubts in, you know, I don't have any doubts in her and us, but like just like in life, you know what I mean? Because like, let's be real, disappointments happen, and she's somebody I can go to, and she's like, you know what? Like she comes at me with like hard facts, you know what I mean? She kind of not really puts me in my place, because that's like a terrible way to put it, but like comforts me in a way that only somebody who loves me and, you know, has Jesus loving me through them can do.
Yeah.
And honestly, the person who's going to be doing that the most is your spouse, or is your significant other. That's a lot of people like to say, your boyfriend or your girlfriend, you know what I mean?
Yeah, we don't really, we call each other that because that's technically the term, but we don't really like the terms very much. Yeah, and it's just
We
because
usually
for
say
us
that-
it's more, I mean, because we've kind of known since
It's
the
more than
beginning that
that.
we were the ones for each other. We kind of just, like, literally, I mean, like 2 weeks after we were dating, like, he looked at me and he was like, I just want you to know, like, I'm gonna marry you. Like, I hope you know that. And I'm like, agreed. I wouldn't be here if not.
Yeah.
We
So
said
glad
it.
we're on the same page.
We put it out there beforehand. We weren't even dating yet. We were
Yeah.
driving in the car, hanging out. We weren't hanging out one-on-one before we started dating. That is one thing we did. Some people don't like doing
Just
that
a
because
little,
they're
just-
like, it's too tempting. But I'm like, yeah, we're both fine. Like,
You need to get to know each other
yeah, you need to get to each
differently. You
other
can't talk
on a
about certain
one-to-one,
things
and you
with
can't do it over text.
other people.
You just
Yeah.
can't do it over text.
We've been, yeah, we
But
don't like
we were in the
text.
car, we were driving, and I was like, look, I need you to understand this from the get-go before we even take this, like, thing, you know, because we weren't technically in a relationship yet. But before we take this to the next step, I was like, I don't date to waste time. I was like, I'm not going to waste mine. I'm not going to waste yours. So I told her I'm not going to waste yours. I sure as heck I'm not going to waste mine. And I was like, so unless you, I was like, if you don't see this going somewhere, I need you to say something now. Because, like, I'm falling and falling hard. You know what I mean? And I'm somebody that, like, when I fall for somebody, they're the only person in the world in that moment. You know what I mean? Like, if I'm with them, unless, like, a super sick car drives by, she has my full attention.
This is true. This is
I'll be real honest. The only thing that catches my eye when I'm with her is, like, if, like, a Camaro is all day.
Okay. How do you keep God in the center of your relationship? Because you know how you said you're separate, but how do you
Absolutely.
do it together?
Well, I mean, it kind of somewhat ties into how we answered before. Just kind of like, you know, we already had that solidly, and so it kind of just, especially when that is something that you're so completely, genuinely devoted to, like your relationship with God, it comes up naturally in your life, and you don't even really realize it. If that makes sense, you know, like things that you just love, you just talk about. You know, like we all just been like cars. It just comes out because it's just something you genuinely in your soul and who makes you you. You just love it, and it just comes out, and you can't help it. And so it's the same for God, you know, when it's just like, when it's so in you, it's just a part of you, and so it just overflows and it just comes out.
Yeah.
And so there's that aspect where, you know, two people who are that way, it's naturally just going to come up. But then, especially like when you're dating to be, like you're not just dating to date, you know, like you have this
Dating
end
with
goal.
intent.
Yes, and you're living your lives, learning how you're going to merge your two into one, and that's how you're living this life, and you're on this journey together now. And so when hard things come up, decisions have to be made, figured out. You know, we've prayed together. We've prayed to God. We've prayed separately about the same thing. We've prayed together about things for each other, having to do with ourselves and just separate things. I think it's just, you know, just being open about like where your relationship is with God as yourself, and then when there's things as your life and you're going through, you know, the parts of your life that are together, you know, and you're just praying about things, so you spend the time with God together, not just you're praying for it and I'm praying for it and we're going to see if we come out the same, you know.
Right.
So I think that's
There's just something about
Yeah.
standing together as a couple.
Mhm.
There's one thing like going to God by yourself, you know what I mean? But there's like a whole, I mean, it's like, you know, the whole thing about marriage is, you know, some people say it's 50-50 and you make it 100. But in reality, marriage should be 100 coming together to make honestly 200%. I mean, I'm taking 100% of me,
It's a
and she gives me
collaboration,
100%.
not a compromise.
Exactly.
It's
She
two
gives
people.
100% of
Yeah.
her, and I don't leave anything out. Like I don't give her just 50% of myself. Like that's stupid. You know what I mean? Like if you're training for a big race, you wouldn't be like, well, I'll just train 50%. Like no, like I'm dating her to marry her. I'm kind of, you know, somewhat training for the big race of marriage, and you know what I mean. So I'm gonna give 100% of who I am to her.
And like whenever hard things happen, and it's like, and because I mean, part of like the, you know, being together and being like having God at the center, and then our relationship being like taking it that seriously, you know, like when like crap hits the fan, and it's like sometimes you need someone you can just say stuff that makes you sound like a bad person, but it's honestly how you feel, and you just need to say it, just say it to someone, and so that person is going to be the person you can bounce that off of, you know. And so especially when it's things having to do with like just things in life and how you're feeling, or if you're hearing from God or you're struggling to hear from God for something, or if you're just, you know, you're just in a hard time, and that person, you know, he's very good at reminding me a lot of the time, like whenever I'm having a hard time with something, and he reminds me of like, you know, like what the truth is, you know,
Same.
what the
Awesome.
Bible says, what Jesus thinks,
Text
you
all the
know.
time.
Yeah, and so I mean, it's, you know,
She
and
does the same thing for me. It's
Yeah.
definitely not just I do it for her. She
it's
100%
not just
does
like,
it for me.
oh, well, you know, life just happens and we're gonna get
Yeah.
through it. It's like, you know, remember where your peace comes from, and remember, you know, and so that's so.
Yeah, keeping God in the center of your relationship is a very, very tricky thing to do because you can think you're doing it and then not be doing it at the same time. You can be like, oh, I'm totally keeping God in the center of our relationship. But then if you honestly step back and be like 100% real with yourself, you're like, no, I'm not. Like, where did I get off? And you almost have to like backtrack and then like get back on track. But if you're both very clear on, like from the get-go, on what the relationship's going to look like and how God is going to be staying in the center of that relationship from both of your perspective. And honestly, when you're with the person you're supposed to be with, it lines up perfectly.
Yeah.
Like when we did have those conversations and stuff like that, like what's this going to look like? You know what I mean? Like how are we going to do these certain things? How are we going to keep God in the center? Because that's a very big and very important thing for both of us. It was, I mean, she answered first and literally took the words right out of my mouth. I was like, that is literally what I was going to say. Like almost verbatim. I would have worded things a couple things differently, but it's just because she's better at words than me.
Well, but we just both, it reminds you just, you know, when Holy Spirit is at the center and everything, and we really are devoted to hearing what He's telling us, and we're both asking for the same thing, He's not going to tell us two different answers. And so, obviously, it's just a good confirmation, and it boosts your own faith, and it boosts His faith, you know, and our faith together, that we really do hear from the Lord. And the Lord really is for us and for what we're doing, that we heard the same answer in the things that we were asking for, you know, so.
Yeah. A very good way to do that and to keep God in the center of a relationship is one, growing together, like being, you know, surrounded by somewhat of the same group of people. You know what I mean? Like her friends have become my friends and my friends have become her friends. You know what I mean? If there wasn't ever any conflict of like our friends like being cool with each other, like her friends like automatically took to me and my friends automatically took to her. I mean,
well, and the friends that we keep close are good friends.
Absolutely.
On the same
And so,
path
and
as
then
we are.
yeah, and then like we go to young adults together and like we sit down and we like, and afterward we'll talk about it and we talk like, you know, the things that we thought were really good, things like whoa, like this, like we just show like that happened for the first time. We're like, oh my gosh, like that's so cool. You know, we're celebrating like little victories like that, but also like I'll come to her and be like, hey, I didn't understand this. Like what was said, I just didn't quite understand it. And then she's like, oh, well, I got it this way. And she helps me in that aspect. You know what I mean? Like she sees it differently than I did. And then like vice versa. She's like, I didn't understand this. And I'm like, well, this is how I saw it. This is what I got. And it helps her understand what was said to even a greater extent. And then that honestly almost like unlocks something in the other person. Like if you didn't understand it and like she explains it to me in a different way, I'm like, oh, okay, so it's kind of like this. And then we're honestly like helping each other understand the Bible and like God's word even more. And then another really good way is just like, sorry, I'm like talking a lot, but
I'm very interested.
I got big answers.
I haven't yawned once this time, so I'm like, I'm
Praise God.
Anyway, is like we talked about before, is honestly sitting down and praying with each other. A lot of couples who say they have God in the center of their relationship don't do that. And I'm like, why? Like, if God's really in the center and y'all don't talk to Him at the same time and y'all can't talk to Him together, then is He really in the center of your relationship? You know what I mean? Like, if you can't go to God in front of your significant other, person's probably not for you. Like, chances are, unless that's just something y'all have never talked about, then if it isn't, talk about it. Because that's a very, very important thing.
It's honestly a really sweet thing to pray with your significant other, because it really gives you a picture into their soul a little differently. Because you just get to hear how their heart speaks, you know, if they're being really genuine and not like just mechanical and you know, but you get to just hear how what their heart's language is, and you get to hear that like sensitivity that you don't necessarily hear a lot of times in other aspects of life, you know, and so you get to understand kind of how they work on how their soul really is on the inside a little bit differently than you do just when they're just talking about whatever lunch or something, you know, so.
Chicken sandwiches. So next question.
Yeah.
How do you fight temptation?
Boundaries.
We all have temptation.
Boundaries.
That's not if, it's a definite.
It's a definite.
Everybody
I mean,
does.
yeah. Like, she's hot. And so, like, I definitely have temptations. And she thinks vice versa. I know this. I can say that proudly because she's told me many times. Which is a very important thing. Verbal affirmation is a very important thing between a couple in a relationship. And it can't be one way. It can't be like me telling her all the time and her just being
Oh
like,
my gosh,
thanks,
you're so
thanks,
hot. I'd be
thanks.
like, wow, thank you, you're so hot.
And then just like not like reciprocating the same thing. Like if she puts out a certain type of energy, I do my best, even if I'm not feeling it in the moment. If you're like in a moment where you're just like feeling like extra like cute and like flirty, and you're like, oh, like I love you, and everything. Like even if I'm not feeling like that kind of way in that moment, I'm still gonna do my absolute best to reciprocate it back as best I can. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anyway, but that's not the question. The question is temptation, right?
Yes.
It's setting boundaries, having very, very set boundaries, and not compromising on those boundaries.
For teenage relationships, what would you say for them?
I mean, honestly, everybody's going to have temptations. There's not a question of if. Everything in the world, of all the things in the world that are sin, there's, Bible says there's no sin new under the sun. Anything that's been done has been done before.
Yeah.
But not everything anything that is a sin is just something that breaks God's heart. And not everything that's like that in the world is something that everybody struggles with. Not everyone's going to be given to drugs. Not everyone's going to be given to alcohol or whatever,
Yeah.
But sexual sin is something everybody's going to struggle with because you're created to want it. And so anything that you're created for, the devil is going to twist. So there's no such thing as like not struggling with it in some way. And so to struggle with it inherently, to be tempted inherently, there's nothing wrong with that. It's natural, it's going to happen. The choice is how do you react to it.
Mm-hmm.
And so someone being tempted, you don't need to get off on like guilt and like condemnation just
Yeah.
for having temptation. You can't help it. You're created to want it. It's perfectly natural. You just have to have the foundation and be grounded that you're not going to do it.
Exactly.
And that you know from God, where is the line for me? What is too far? Like, what can I,
You really have found your girl.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
She's my better half.
So for
We're
us,
pretty
again,
equal.
for us, again, it kind of goes back to the beginning. It's just communication for us. Because we both, from the very, we're both virgins and we're both very proud of that. And it's something that we worked really hard to have. It's not like for lack of opportunity. It's just we made a choice.
Yeah.
And so
Making that choice is huge. Like,
yeah.
okay, but like, let's be real. Like, let's not move on from that real quick. Making that choice to abstain from sex and all that is a very, very big deal. And then once you make that choice, it's gonna come at you hard. You know what I mean? And you have to be very much grounded that you're making that choice for the right reasons, because that's what the Bible. I mean, it's biblical. You know what I mean? You're making that choice for the right reasons. And if you've already messed up, it's not too late to make that decision again. You know what I mean? Like, you've already messed up. Like, don't beat yourself up for it. You messed up, so what? Like, you didn't surprise
The
God.
Lord can
God didn't
restore
look at you
your
and be
journey.
like, oh, crud, like, well, that happened, you know what I mean? He's like, all right, cool. He's going to pick you up, and he's going to be like, let's keep moving.
If
You
you
can
repent and
choose.
the Lord forgives you, He can restore your
Exactly.
purity for whoever it is that you're meant to be with. It's not like, once you're done, you might as well just go all in because you already did it. It doesn't have to be like that.
No, it doesn't.
At all.
Yeah, you can still make that choice to be like, you know what? I did mess up. Own up to it. That's a big thing, is owning up to it, being like, you know what? I did mess up, but I'm not going to do it again. Because this is a big deal. Sure, I mean, you did those things, and honestly, once you do it, the temptations come even harder. You know what I mean? I mean, that's like a very real thing. You can't be tempted by something you've never had.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And so, but once you do those things, but you have to be very, very grounded and very rooted in your relationship with God, and in that decision that you're making the right decision to be like, nah, I'm not doing it again.
And you have to
Even
be
when you're with the person you're supposed to be with. Like,
Yeah.
like being with her and knowing I'm gonna marry her, I have to
It
I'll be real
makes
honest, I have to fight it all the time.
Mhm.
Because I'm like, no. Like,
And a lot of people
That's
have the
not the
mindset
right-
of like,
yeah.
oh, we're gonna get married anyway. It doesn't matter, But
But
it does.
does.
But if God, this is the order God set it in, and that's all there is to it. If for no other
Yeah.
reason, is because this is the way God set it up to be, and this is what we're gonna do because it's
Yeah.
what He's asked of us, and we're being obedient. And we know that by being obedient, the outcome will be much better in the end, and we will be blessed for that, rather than setting it on a course to have complications in the future because we disobeyed. And you really have to make sure that you are both. So, like I said before, just communication about it a lot. You can't. If you're afraid to talk about it, you're already failing. If you can't be open about that, if it's something that makes you nervous to talk about, it's already YouTube
Come on.
it sucks already for you. You're just you're setting yourself up to fail. So, just being very open about like, this is what I believe, and if your significant other is not on that same page with you, or they are resistant to that, again, you're setting yourself up to fail. You're already definitely not with the right person. If they don't see that and they're trying to pressure you and they're being combative with it,
Bye, Felicia.
I'm not trying to like say anything about anybody. It's just, but
Fernando.
you have to be, because it's already hard enough just for yourself, and if the other person's making it harder for you, you're just making it unnecessarily difficult, and you're going to mess up.
100%.
So you have to both really be in agreement for that, and I don't think it can be about any like, I don't think there's like a list of like, this is okay, stop, married, okay. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think you can't make it about like,
your boundaries.
here's the line, like how far close to the line can I possibly get? Like what specifically can I do? It can't be about that. It has to be, for between you and the other person and God, of where is your line, you know? And so that's really, and you have to be open and be able to communicate that to make sure you're on the same page about that kind of stuff, and just honoring each other in that. So
it's really hard to resist the temptation. Like it really is, but it's not impossible.
Yeah.
It's really not. I mean, I'm 21 and I'm still a virgin, which is, from what I understand, pretty
Very good.
pretty dang rare to find. And so I mean, I'm kind of living testament to be like, yo, it's not impossible. The temptation's there. Don't get me wrong.
Not one of us has ever done anything wrong.
Right.
Never struggled at all. We all have things that we've done we wish we hadn't done. You know. But again, you repent for those things. You accept the forgiveness. You forgive yourself. You ask God to restore the purity where it was distorted, and you move forward and you change your lifestyle. And
Exactly.
you don't remember that person. That person was a different person. And so who I was when I was 14, who I was when I was 12, who I was when I was 16, 17 is not who I am currently at 20. So,
Likewise. Very different from 21 to like 14, it wasn't.
Yeah.
Very different.
Very.
Next question.
I meant to ask this in the beginning. I don't know why it's at the bottom, but how did y'all know y'all were meant for each other?
Man, I'm not gonna lie, I just knew. Like, in all honesty,
I really hate this question.
Yeah, because it's
I hated when I
difficult.
asked this question and the answer I got was not good for me, but now it's the answer I give, and I know that it's a sucky answer to hear when you don't know, but I can't help it because it really is the answer. It's just
because when you do find your one, you get it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so, I'll be real honest. I didn't know that she was the one right off the bat. Like that moment. Like, for real, because there were some things that were like kind of in the way of like us pursuing each other, just like especially for me first. Okay, I didn't know right off the bat. Like I thought she was beautiful. Obviously, that she was somebody I wanted to get to know, and the more I got to know her, I was like, okay, this chick's like really cool. This chick's like really cool, you know what I mean? Because like we started texting about music, and so like I was like, I love music.
You know this word to the
She
wise
loves
for
music.
men, boys. If you like a girl and you want to get to know her,
Don't
ask
ask.
her what one of her interests are, and then just
Don't-
start getting to know her based off of that. That's
Don't
what he
ask
did.
for her favorite
First time he ever texted me, he said this. He didn't hardly listen to country. I love country. I love every single kind of music that there is.
Country.
I love
I like
country. Okay.
Yeah,
He didn't
I
know
do like
anything
it.
country. So the first day that we first started talking, it's burned in my brain forever. He texted me. We weren't texting about anything. We never texted before, just on one-on-one. And he said, "Hey, I've been wanting to try to get into country music. What are some things people that I should listen to?" And I'm like, "Bet." And then we started talking about that. And the only
reason I
and
wanted
so
to get into country is because she loved country.
hindsight, now he's able to tell me that later. He confesses that, but that
good
was
tip.
a very good move.
It's a good tip.
Nothing like sneaky, shady about that. He wasn't like.
What's your favorite color?
He wasn't like, hey, like, I just really want to get to know you. He wouldn't say anything weird. He's just very
Smile.
genuine, and he genuinely was like wanting to listen to. He wasn't even lying either. So
I listened to
asking
every
a girl what her
song.
interest is and being
She said-
genuinely interested
At
in
least
her
once.
interests, that goes a long way with a girl.
I made a playlist. That way I could get to know them and kind of like.
And he actually would listen to the things I would send him too.
I almost like forced myself to get into like her favorite,
And now
one of
he
her
loves
favorite,
it.
one of her favorite
Ouch.
genres. Not her favorite, one of her favorite genres of music. And now I do. I listen to it by myself all the time. I listened to it this morning on the way to work.
Country?
Yeah,
I've been listening to it a lot. It's the only thing I can listen to.
It's a good song. It's good music.
Brilliant.
it's good music. But when I knew she was the one is whenever I started getting to know her, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna make this work. And then honestly, like as like the more we hung out one on one and everything, it really was like I just knew.
Yeah.
Like one day I just kind of like looked up, and I was like, whenever I like we started dating, and I was like, I'm gonna date till I get to know you even better, you know, to marry you. Because honestly, dating somebody to get to know them, and then finding things you don't really like, or finding things out about them that like maybe there are like some like specific things like you want from a spouse, you want from somebody that maybe they're just not getting, you know what I mean, or like they're just not it, and you break up because of that. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that at all. Like, don't ever beat yourself up for getting to know somebody and then being like, well, actually, you're not the person I'm supposed to be with. That's really okay. You don't have to be like, I'm gonna marry you from the get-go. You know what I mean? Like, obviously date to marry, but if you find out along the way that they're not the person you're gonna marry, you know, it's okay. It's okay to break up. But about 2 weeks into us dating, whenever I looked up and I was like, I'm gonna marry you, that's when I was like, I knew. Like, it was just something like deep, like in my spirit, like deep in my person. Like, I just knew. I didn't know up here. I knew down here, like in my gut, like in my spirit, that I was like, she's the person my soul wants.
I was very like, I've always had a lot of guy friends. I've always had more guy friends than girl friends growing up my whole life. I was very tomboy for a long time. And then I just like guys better than girls most of the time. And I've never been like boy crazy at all, like in any way. And so guys are very chill to me. I don't get nervous around. I never was like, I was just always cool with them. I never really thought of them anything. I just liked them as people. And so, you know, I didn't like, my feelings for him were not like as early on as his were for me, but that was more just because I just really liked him as a person, and I'm like, I'd rather just have you as a friend, so I'm just not gonna think about that. And so, because I was really grateful, like we were friends. I really loved being friends with him and everything, you know. And I was just like, I would rather keep you as a friend. I would rather keep you as a friend forever and not risk it than to try to do something. Yeah. But I mean, if he hadn't been it, I would have it would have like fizzled out, and I would have lost him as a friend. And so I'm like, I'd rather just stay friends the whole time, so I get to keep this really cool person in my life. But you know, kind of just as things went, and it happened very naturally. Like I said, it was like super easy, just the way we just kind of started to kind of morph together away from just friends, you know. And it was just I had this very real moment in my mind of like, and in my heart, like my heart, I was just like, it just kind of like was like, whoa, like I realized without even realizing, I was like, I'm very like emotionally like connected to him, and I really like really care about him, you know. And I kind of just had this moment that I was like, this is it, because I always have been like, I wanted to know, like I wanted to have this like halo moment, like the one, like, you know, be like, I just know. And it doesn't work like that. I mean, occasionally I guess, but not for most people. But I genuinely really had this just kind of like, I don't know what point it was exactly, but it was just like not long after I think he was like pretty deep like feelings for me. But it was like I just kind of had this like gut, like all of a sudden I was like, okay, like if you like him, like this is it, like there's no going back. Like,
before we started dating?
Yeah, it was definitely before we were dating, like a long time, because I liked him really bad for a while, and I just kept thinking, maybe he's just nice, maybe he doesn't really like me, I don't want to assume anything, I want to just be friends, I'll be fine, maybe he'll like me one day, I don't know. And then it turned out he liked me the whole time. But I had this very just gut feeling of just like, this is it, like he really is, like it's okay to let your heart feel this, because he really is the one, you know. So, and it was like, if you're gonna do this, like this is the long haul now, like this is not just maybe it's gonna work out, it's like this is it. So that was terrifying and awesome at the same time, because it was everything I wanted my whole life. That's all I've ever wanted really, was to be married and like have a family and everything. So it's like, this is the answer. So like it's now like, okay. And I love it, you know. I could not be happier with who it was, you know. I'm like, of course it is, because then the more I get to know him, I'm like, literally, why have I not known you my whole life, you know? It's like, where have you been all these years? But also, I'm glad you weren't here any earlier, because I wouldn't have been ready, you know. But it was just like, it was just like perfect. It just made so much sense right after that, you know. And it's just like, I could not possibly imagine myself with anybody else. I'm like, why did I even think that anybody else was good enough before him, you know? Like, why did I ever have any feelings at all for anybody else before I met him, you know? So, yeah, that's
That's a deep question.
And that was whatever.
The end of the video.
That was relationships with Grace and Weston. It was awesome. I was entertained the whole time. probably the best video that we've had on doing this
Aw.
yet, honestly. Not gonna lie. But yeah, that was awesome. I really hope y'all get through the whole video. I'm not gonna lie. It's very interesting, and I stayed entertained the whole time. I didn't yawn once, even though I had to fight back one because I said it and it was in my head. It's okay. I was entertained the whole time. I promise.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah,
Thank you
it's
for
an
coming,
honor.
honestly. Well, thank y'all so much for tuning in. I will have probably both of them on at some point in the future because
Yeah.
I really enjoyed this.
Me too.
Well, that will be it. Thank
Cool.
y'all. See y'all later.
Bye, guys.
Bye.